Not. She's been on the bench.
Yeah.
How long has Bill been on the bench now, Jay?
Every 100 years,
6 years.
we've had one raw year. 100 more raw years.
I've not had a. Well, I have one file.
I've had several.
I think it's the file. Remember that road that we were relocating? I think that was in front of her, and that's it.
I'm just saying,
That's a new.
100 years, you've had one raw year. 100 years, you got 100 more raw.
Did you? Because his wife is on jury duty right now.
Oh, yeah, but this was his own jury.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you don't know.
Yeah, but normally that's right out of mind. So if they have
Young
expiration,
attorney didn't know what she was doing for 4 hours. I mean, a couple of them begged and objected on the witness stand. I couldn't see Bill.
Did it work?
You can't become supervisor. That's been asked and answered. Get on with your next question. And I couldn't see Bill because she was sitting back there, but.
No.
Apparently she was laughing.
Smile, yeah.
Come on, young pup. So I was in a trial with Chris Ebbett. And it had Tom Atwell on the stand. And he was trying to cross-examine Tom Atwell. And he asked him some stupid question like, did the rain come from the outside or something stupid like that? And Atwell goes, you gotta raise the level. And he goes, I'm sorry, excuse me? He says, you gotta raise the level. He says, I gotta raise the level of my voice, because he was, a little hard of hearing. He says, no, you gotta raise the level of the quality of your questions.
I heard it.
And it was the whole
Recording in
courtroom,
progress.
Jerry and everybody just busted out laughing.
All right, welcome everyone. Oops, sorry. Is that a little loud out there?
That's good.
Yeah, all right. It's now about 6:31 p.m. I'd like to call to order the Fenton Township Board meeting on this 30th day of April 2024. I would ask everyone to please stand for the opening prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance. Trustee Gopal, will you lead us?
Yes, sir, thank you. Lord, we're meeting here tonight to conduct matters of business. Guide our hearts and our minds in the spirit of fairness, right thought, and speech. Impart your supreme wisdom upon these activities so that our affairs may reach a successful conclusion. And as always, we thank you for being the source of our guidance tonight. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As always, Mark, appreciate it. So Tom, I'm going to have to turn it over to you. So Tom, will you please call the roll?
Yes, Lorraine,
Present.
Krug is absent, Tucker,
Present.
Gopal.
Here.
Patrick is absent, Kessler.
Here.
Reed.
Here.
5 members present.
Thanks, Tom. All right, I'd also like to note for the record that Township Attorney Jack Belzer, Operations Manager Tom Broker, our Zoning Administrator Mike Deem, our Fire Chief Ryan Volz, and our Township Assessor Julia Wilson are also present. Also present via Zoom is our Township Engineers Alan and Melissa Lawrence. Tom, will you detail the procedures for those attending tonight's virtual meeting?
Yes, for those, to members of the public attending tonight's meeting in person or via Zoom, please be advised this meeting is being recorded to be shown on Public Access TV, Spectrum Channel 191. Recorded meetings are also posted on the Fenton Area Community Television YouTube channel. For those attending via Zoom, we ask that you keep your microphone muted until we reach portions of the meeting where public comment is allowed. For tonight's meeting, there are no public hearings, but 3 ordinance introductions for which public comment will be taken. All other public comment will be taken near the end of the meeting. Meeting materials are available for download on the Township's website at fentontownship.org.
Thanks, Tom. All right, moving on to the first business in order is the approval of the agenda. Are there any requests to amend tonight's agenda?
The only thing I have is a request that we do a short closed session to discuss pending litigation following conclusion of the regular agenda items.
All right. Is there any other request to amend tonight's agenda?
I do have a request of the board relative to wages. I sent that out to everybody. I'd like to address that, whether it's tonight or whatever, but wages for all the elected officials.
Let's wait and put that on another agenda. This might be a long
Sure.
meeting. Thanks, Jack. I appreciate it.
Might go over the hour, Jack.
Yeah. Are there any other requests to amend tonight's agenda? All right, a motion is in order to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved.
All right, motion's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Tom, will you call the roll?
Lorraine,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Patrick is absent, Krug is absent, Kessler.
Yes.
Gopal.
Yes.
Tucker.
Yes.
Motion carries, agenda is approved.
All right, agenda stands approved as presented. or amended. The next business order is meeting minutes. I included in the packet are the meeting minutes of the April 16th regular meeting. Are there any corrections or requested revisions to these meeting minutes?
Never seen my name written so many times in my life.
It's because you talked to them.
I know.
All right, hearing none, the meeting minutes stand approved as presented. Moving on to the next business in order, which is expenditures. Are there any questions from the board regarding any of the invoices?
I intended to ask about the audit check when I first looked at it, but the last item on the agenda answered that question for me. So.
Tom came into my office and
Yeah,
advised me there was going to be a little difference.
I just, when I saw it, it's like, wait, time out. That ain't right.
Yeah, a little extra this year.
Yeah, a little.
All right. No other questions? Hearing none, a motion is in order to approve the expenditures totaling $238,659.33 for payment.
So moved.
Support.
All right, motion's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Tom, will you call the roll?
Krug is absent, Kotrick is absent, Kessler,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Gopel.
Yes.
Tucker.
Yes.
Lorraine.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, expenditures stand approved as presented. Moving on to next business order is public hearings. As Tom said, we have none this evening. Next business order is reports. Are there any committee reports to be made to the board this evening? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to communications. We have none this evening. Moving on to adoption of ordinances. This is rezoning number R24-001, Kurtwood Farms LLC, parcel number 06-28-100-08, Silver Lake Road, Ag to RM with conditions. This is the introduction and the first reading. Tonight, I guess we have a presentation from the Director of Acquisitions for Redwood Departments, Emily Engelhardt. Emily, why don't you like to come on up and address the board? Welcome, Emily.
Thank you very much for having me. Do I need to state my name and address?
No.
Okay, great. Well, I will state my name. My name is Emily, for everyone who didn't hear. Thank you very much for having me this evening. I have a presentation about Redwood. We are the applicant for this conditional rezoning. And I will try to be brief. I know there's several items on the agenda, but I do feel that I'd like to make a presentation about Redwood because I believe we are a little bit different than a traditional apartment development, and I like to talk about what we do and who we are.
Emily?
Yes.
I just want to let you know, we do have the PowerPoint that's being shown on the screen. Oh,
I
okay,
see it
she
right
can see
here,
it, okay.
which I
So I didn't know,
appreciate.
I just wanted to let you know that you probably have to say something like next or something like that.
Okay.
All
And
right,
it'll-
sorry about that.
No, I appreciate it. It'll keep me on track. So, and I don't know if I should say next slide or if there's a clicker. Thank you. So as I mentioned, we're a little bit different. Who is Redwood? We do one thing and one thing only, and that is build single-story, 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartment units, each with an attached 2-car garage and a full driveway. That is all we do. We have grown since 1991. The company was founded in Independence, Ohio, and we've grown to over 17,000 units with certificates of occupancy right now. There's probably 3,000 additional in various stages of entitlement and construction. So we've really grown into great bountiful company who we feel we've reinvented the idea of what an apartment can be and who might want to live there. So our portfolio, as I mentioned, is rather large. It's well leased, 95-98%, fluctuates obviously. We offer on-site professional management, and we do everything. We entitle, we build, we own, and manage. So we've never sold an apartment community since we've started building them. So it is our intention to grow this into a brand that hopefully will be throughout the entire United States. Who are our residents? We are not age restricted. However, our 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom nature often appeals to seniors, empty nesters, young professionals, folks who are looking for an alternative to a single-family home for whatever reason, but they don't want to give up the look and feel, the garage, which is, our residents tell us that is the main amenity that attracts folks to Redwood. We offer our units at a market rate. I mean, it's a pretty strong rent, equivalent, honestly, to many mortgage payments. We find that it offers people some flexibility, whether they're building a house, whether they want to maybe move somewhere in a couple years, or they don't want the maintenance, they want to be a snowbird. People come to Redwood for various reasons, and we're happy to have them. We find that often folks are already living and are seeking this type of housing for, like I said, whatever reason. So they're often living in somewhere like Fenton Township or the neighboring communities, and this gives them an opportunity to maybe stay here and live somewhere else. So we require a background check, a credit check to rent. We often say we offer peace and quiet. So we really try to maintain safe, quiet, peaceful communities. Our closest redwood that you can see, look, touch, is Grand Blanc Township, so it's not very far away from here. Well leased over there. We're under construction in Heartland. I think we're receiving our first COs within the last month, and we're actually under approvals for an additional phase of that project in the future. So, but we have a number throughout Michigan. You may have already experienced us. I think that's my longest slide, so thank you. A little bit about our neighbors. Again, this can change depending on the community that we're in, but we find our average resident age is just over 50. There's less than 2 people per apartment home. Not huge amounts of children in our neighborhood. Again, we'll rent to anyone who qualifies, but the 2-bedroom nature does often limit that. We have less than 2 cars per home. Average lease term is just over a year. It's longer than we see throughout the market in traditional apartments. Most people renew their lease, and almost 20%, 18.8% stay more than 5 years. So, next, please. Thank you. This is just a little bit of information about how we, manage our neighborhoods. We have to provide our residents have to go through a background check, a credit check, do a screening to make sure that they would qualify for our neighborhood. And if anyone's a problem, we do have the option to not renew their lease if they don't seem to be a fit for the neighborhood. So, we want to make this a great place for the folks that live there. So we take a lot of pride in it. Here's a little bit, Redwood is based in Ohio. However, I feel we are a Michigan company too. I live here in Michigan, and we have 33 neighborhoods, probably 7 different neighborhoods in process. We have an office here, and as I mentioned, Grand Blanc, Heartland Township, Howell, Lake Orion are probably our closest neighborhoods, but we're all over, as you can see. And then throughout, we are kind of popular in, I would say, the broader Midwest, where the garage with the snow belt is an attractive amenity. That's where we've started, and that's where we're growing. But we do have a couple in the Carolinas, and with a plan to expand. Market research, we really do a lot of work up front to make sure that we're going to be successful in a community, that there are enough folks that we believe would be Redwood residents that want to live here. We look to make sure that we're not cannibalizing off ourselves, and that it's a great place to be, and we think Fenton Township is a wonderful place. I've been working in the brokerage on Redwood's behalf for many years, and I've tried to find somewhere in Fenton Township for a long time, so I'm very happy to be in front of you this evening. So what do we build? Again, 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, attached 2-car garage, single story. All of our units are single story. I think I mentioned that. They each have their own driveway. We have different floor plans, which also translates into different facades. We call these neighborhoods. We feel that they are, and when you drive through, you'll see different buildings. And our unit types are different colored, so it does look a lot like maybe an attached type condo product or something like that. And we can still talk about it, but we offer high service, low maintenance lifestyle. We'll handle all the snow, the lawn, things like that. And if you have an issue where you can't take out your trash, or you need help changing your light bulb, that's something that our service technicians can help people with. We want to provide them a high level of service. Just a couple of renderings, and then also photos of our different types of units. Forest woods and meadowwood units look like this. The Cape Wood has a sunroom on it. It's our largest unit, so just over 1,600 square feet. A Willowwood is a little bit of a wider, less deep unit, just a different layout, floor plan. Hayden Woods are often, we use these when we're up near a public street because it's a little bit more forward facing. There's a front porch look to it rather than the garage. So often, like up against the street, we would use these Hayden Wood type units. And then a Breezewood is an alternate. Those have a little bit of a different back outdoor patio space, and obviously an interior layout that's a little bit different, but I think they have a screened in porch. So just some different offerings. Here's street views of some of our neighborhoods in the day and the night, landscaping, things like that. Our maintenance, as I mentioned, we handle all the snow, we mow, we take a lot of pride in our communities. Again, with our rents, we have to make sure that we keep our communities nice, place that people want to live and continue to rent in. So interior features, pretty much what you would seek for a high-end apartment. The 2 full bathrooms, each unit has a den, granite countertops, stainless steel appliances, an eat-in kitchen, vaulted ceilings with fans, hookups for washer dryer, things that you would look for in a home. So these are just some pictures of units in Grand Rapids. And our garage amenity, as well as we have a pantry and walk-in closets in both of the bedrooms. I like to point out this slide. This is our first neighborhood that we built. The first couple in the 90s were purchased, and we started building our communities in 2006. We still own this community. It's still, well leased and a great part of our portfolio. But I always like to highlight that we still, take a lot of pride in our, communities for years and years to come, and that's our goal. So I'm here tonight with a request for a conditional rezoning. We've placed conditions on ourselves to the township to try and make sure that the township would understand, and the neighbors and the residents, that we are limiting ourselves to hopefully just saying that we are going to build a redwood here. So we've offered a number of conditions. We will still, if this rezoning is approved, have to go through a site plan approval process, get all of our permits and approvals with all the agencies that are required. So this is just the first step to quite a long process. But we knew that this property is an important piece of Fenton Township, and we wanted to make sure that we gave what we believe to be a very strong proposal for a conditional rezoning. So our conditional rezoning proposal, I think you may have read it, but there's a 39-acre piece next to or just north of Price's Airport, and we are basically limiting ourselves to the following. We would reduce all the uses within RM to just residential townhouse, patio, row house, limit ourselves to single story, our building length to 6 units or less, a minimum floor area of 1,200 square foot per unit, private roads, we would handle our own roads. We would ask that this conditional rezoning become effective when Redwood buys the property. We've done that in the past, but so that if for whatever reason we didn't buy this, it would not be maintained as multiple family, it would go back to what it was. One that's unique here is with the airport. Early on, we found out that there were some considerations for the airport that MDOT and the FAA had. We had a meeting with MDOT officials about what would be able to be built here, and provided a plan where we would keep structures out of this 500-foot safety zone that they have. At the last meeting with the Planning Commission, Cody came and spoke. He manages the airport, I believe, and spoke in support of the project and what we've done so far and are willing to offer. The 8th one is, I know that the master plan is in process, and we would ask that this request be contingent on the fact that the future land use, coincides with multiple family for this property, so that we are in line with Fenton Township's future land use map and ultimate master plan. And then finally, this came up at the last meeting, that municipal water be available at the site. We're completely fine with that, and I believe there's an ordinance that would require that, but we don't build communities without water. We've been told there is water, it just needs an agreement to happen through with, I'm sure Mike can speak a little bit more to that, but it's more of a process thing from what I understand. So I think this is just talks about how we're consistent with what we found in the draft master plan, what the goals, objectives, the discussions of the demographics in the township, and how we feel that our proposal does help the township meet those goals and objectives. And then this is a very conceptual plan. the Planning Commission had asked or desired to see a plan. We were not hesitant to put one out there, but we haven't completed our due diligence yet on the site. We're comfortable enough that we want to move forward, but to do full wetlands, geotech surveys, things like that is a lot of money, and without knowing about a rezoning, we didn't want to commit ourselves to an exact layout or get anything. But we do feel that this plan in general should be, I would say, the maximum of what we can achieve. Again, it's very conceptual. It will change. We're restricted by those conditions, but this is what a Redwood neighborhood typically looks like, and this is what we might envision to be here. So I hope that that doesn't confuse any issues. Of course, we would have to go through the site plan approval with the township, but this is just kind of an idea of what we envision here. One final note is that I know that traffic was a concern at the last meeting, and Redwood has undertaken a traffic study to look at this. We understand that there are probably some improvements that will need to be made to Silver Lake Road, and we're comfortable with those. But we are aware that that's a concern, and we'll work with Genesee County, I believe, owns that road, to if this does get approved, to get them to approve the development as well. So just in summary, we think that Fenton Township is a wonderful place to be. We hope Redwood can be a part of it. I have my engineer here. If there are any questions, I don't know if this session is available for questions from the board, but I'm happy to speak more on anything, but I know I've spoken quite a bit, so I'll leave it at that.
Emily, thank you so very much. What we're going to do is we're going to bring Mike up, our zoning administrator, and we're going to go through that process. Then we'll start the public hearing, and if there's anybody that wants to address questions to you, they can directly do that, or the board.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Emily. Go ahead, Mike.
All right. Yeah, so we're here for rezoning. We're not here for a site plan, right? And I think that's an important distinction to make. When we're looking at rezoning, we're looking at changing the land use for the property. Now, in the old master plan, right, this was always identified as low-density residential. Conditions out on Silver Lake Road have changed, right? The Planning Commission, going through the master plan process, has identified a number of characteristics for this area. Water's there, sewer is there, the laugh pathway is going across the property. And it's next to an airport. When you start putting these factors together, right, those don't generally coincide with low-density residential. In the new master plan, right, this area has been identified as high-density residential. Now, that master plan has not been adopted yet. May 9th is the public hearing for the master plan. It's anticipated Planning Commission will adopt the master plan at that meeting, and then forward a recommendation to the Township Board to have you guys do the same at the May 21st meeting. So from a procedural standpoint, right, it's kind of in line of where we are with these meetings, right? The next board meeting is May 21st, right? So you'll be hearing the master plan and reviewing the master plan before you make a decision on this rezoning request. But it's rezoning, right? We look at the master plan. Planning Commission made a determination that it's consistent with the new master plan, assuming that that's adopted. We did have concerns from the residents, right? They brought up concerns about buffers, screening, traffic, water. Those are all site plan issues, right? And will get addressed during the site plan process. For the rezoning, the concerns people had were, again, site issues, and it didn't seem they were really issues with the project as a whole. We did have 2 planning commissioners vote against recommending approval, so it was 4-2. We had 1 planning commissioner not there. The 2 that voted against it did so because they wanted to see a layout. And they had made comments that if they had a better understanding of what the layout would look like, they would be more inclined to recommend approval. And I think that gets back to how the process generally works. When we have rezonings, we do typically have a site plan available to look at, but this is a unique situation. The current master plan, right, has it as low density. The new master plan has it as high density. So the applicant doesn't have that level of comfort, right, knowing that the plan says X, I can do X if I meet X, Y, and Z. So it was 4-2, but it was really could have been 6-0. But I'm here to answer any questions you guys have. So this is a conditional rezoning, so all the conditions have been offered by the applicant. If there are changes to the conditions, they have to be offered by the applicant, right? We don't have the ability to say, hey, change this and we'll approve it. It has to be offered up.
Does any board members want to ask Mike a question, and I'll
Yeah.
turn to John if he has any additional.
I have a question for Mike.
Mhm.
So you said that the master plan has this as low-density residential,
Today.
and we're looking to change it to high-density or multiple family. But this says we're rezoning from ag, so the zoning officially on this property today is agricultural.
Correct.
Any other questions for our zoning administrator? Treasurer Tucker, do you have any other input you'd like to give us from the planning commission?
So that planning commissioner that was missing at the meeting? Okay, that was me. Now, that said, this is not a new project to me, or it's not that I am unfamiliar with the project. Christine, it is master plan for medium density residential, but the zoning, those are two different beasties. It just never got carried over to what that is. So when we were looking at this area with respect to the uses, everything Mike said is correct. And in addition, it's located on a county primary road with relatively close access to a freeway. Okay. Those are areas where you look at doing more intense uses than you otherwise might. This has a runway behind it. Okay, that's going to limit effectiveness for a number of even residential concepts. Now, does it work? Yeah, if you go a half a mile north of here, there's a railroad track. And we got a development of single-family residential built up around that. But, you know, it comes with issues, you know, noise and that sort of thing. So, long story short is that we have looked at this area. You look to the west, there's now a new senior facility there. So this, you know, in the sense of trying to bridge your uses down to residential, because if you go further east, there is single-family residential. This is a good transition from a you know, kind of a commercial seniors facility to a heavy density residential use, you know, working your way down to medium density residential. So, you know, I think the concept works. Now, usually when we're at this stage, I give you my mantra, you know, for rezoning, and that is it consistent with the master plan? And if this were not a conditional rezoning, we probably wouldn't be talking about it right now, because right now this proposal is not consistent with the existing master plan. But it is conditional, and one of the conditions is that the new master plan classifies this as high density residential. So the timings are going to work out. You know, I don't think, you know, they're early in the process. They're not ready to put a shovel in the ground yet. They've got a lot of work to do, you know, once they get through this spot. So if things go as the way we anticipate, you never know until you have the votes. And there'll be one at the planning commission, there'll be one here. But this is consistent with what we've talked about, we being the planning commission, for this area of Silver Lake Road.
Thanks, John. Mike, if you want to stay up there, is there any other questions for Mike? Anything that you'd like to ask John? And we can open it up for Emily also, if anybody's got a question about the development itself. Any questions? All right, hearing none, I will now open up the meeting for public comment. Tom, is there any written comments?
On this, no.
Okay, none? Okay, I'll open it up. Is there anyone here in person that would like to address the board regarding rezoning number R24-001, Kurtwood Farms LLC? Anybody here? All right, we will move on to Zoom. Is there anyone attending tonight's meeting via Zoom that would like to address the board? Just wave your hand or open up your mic. All right, hearing none, I will now close the public hearing. Are there any questions or comments from the board before we All right, just let you know the second reading and vote on the adoption of the proposed rezoning ordinance will be conducted at our May 21st meeting. All right. Next, under adoption of ordinances, this is the proposed ordinances for STRs, or short-term rentals. This is the introduction and first reading. We have a zoning ordinance amendment for short-term rentals and a general police power ordinance for short-term rentals. We have our zoning administrator, Mike Deem, that will review.
All right, we got a PowerPoint coming up on this one too. There we go. Last time we were all together talking about short-term rentals was August of last year. And we were reviewing the results of the community survey. One of the things we did at that meeting was we kind of laid out the action plan that the Planning Commission would take going forward regulating short-term rentals. If we go to the next slide here. We had originally offered two different types of definitions, and the Planning Commission settled on short-term rentals are defined as a rental of all or part of a residential dwelling unit for a duration of occupancy of less than 30 days. So with that understanding, right, the Planning Commission moved forward, utilizing the resources available to us, using the best practices provided by MML and MTA to develop the ordinances that you guys see here. Next slide. So originally we outlined three paths that the Planning Commission could have taken, right? The first was to outright ban short-term rentals. The other option was allow them with no regulations, just let them do their thing. And the third option was allow short-term rentals with regulations, with the idea that you'd be amending the zoning ordinance and creating a general ordinance with additional standards. And that was the option the Planning Commission took. So the next part of that action plan was, well, how are we going to regulate them, right? Because you have two different types of uses in the zoning ordinance. You have permitted uses and special uses, right? Permitted uses are uses by right that businesses can do without additional approvals. Special uses require Planning Commission approval. We have a whole process to go through, involves public hearings, notification of neighbors, and so the Planning Commission settled on allowing short-term rentals as a permitted use in non-residential zoning properties, zoning districts, and then as a special use permit in residential zone properties. Next. Planning Commission did a lot of research on what effect location of short-term rentals, right, has on the neighborhoods. The first question, and a lot of discussion, was should lake lots have different requirements than non-lake lots? Planning Commission felt that it was most appropriate to treat all lots in the township similar. So lake lots have the same restrictions as non-lake lots. One thing that came out of the survey, that the only thing that everyone was in favor of, was not allowing motorized rentals with short-term rentals, right? So you can't rent your short-term rental and a boat at the same time, or, you know, just can't do it, period. There's restrictions in the zoning ordinance currently about who has access to the lakes and what processes you can go through. So allowing motorized boat rentals would not be consistent with the ordinance today. Next slide. So again, right, we talked about the different residential districts and non-residential districts and how those would be treated. Special use permit in residential, permitted use in non-residential. Next slide. Another big discussion was density relating to short-term rentals, in both the number of rentals and occupancy of rentals. So the Planning Commission has recommended that there's a quota limit on the number of short-term rentals in the township. The recommendation is 29, based on the known number of short-term rentals when we started this process. They've also recommended spacing requirements of a minimum of 1,500 feet from other short-term rentals. Now, this spacing is consistent with other special uses that have distance requirements that you typically find from churches and schools, things such as bars and restaurants that sell alcohol. They have distance requirements. In other communities, so 1,500 feet is a consistent number for distancing between concerned uses. For occupancy, right? So the number of people allowed in the short-term rental, they have settled on the maximum of 2 people per bedroom. And we have a definition for bedroom. It's a traditional bedroom. It's not, you can't turn a garage into a bedroom. You can't turn your living room into a bedroom. It's the number of bedrooms you have in your house. And 2 people per bedroom. Now, we have concerns about smaller lots, right, that are non-conforming to the zoning ordinance, that may be too close to neighbors, and what effect that may have for short-term rentals. For legal non-conforming lots, right, the Planning Commission may reduce the maximum occupancy based on site conditions. So if there's not available amount of parking, if you only have room for parking for 1 car, well, you're going to have fewer people regardless of the number of bedrooms you have. If you have a 4-bedroom house but only room to park 1 car, you're going to have 2 to 4 people, not 8. If you're too close to the neighbor, right, again, right, you may have a 4-bedroom house, but 8 people may not be the correct number. So the Planning Commission will look at the site conditions when making that determination. Other concerns was, well, how long are they going to stay there? Is it 1 night in and out? Do we have a constant rollover? Well, the minimum length of stay is 3 nights and 4 days for non-owner occupied rentals. Next slide. So other considerations that are in the ordinance, right? We talk about parking, right? We are only allowing off-street parking, so you can't park on the street. Has to be on an approved surface. So you're parking off-street in a driveway. You're not parking on lawns. Any signage on site is just for the address. You're not going to have signage advertising your rentals. We talked about ways to delineate the property, possibly requiring fencing. Planning Commission figured that wasn't appropriate, so they crossed that one out. I also wanted to make clear, short-term rentals shall not be permitted in detached or attached accessory buildings. So if you have a man cave, you can't rent that out. If you have a big party on the 4th of July and want to throw bunk beds in the garage, that's not allowed. Next slide. So Planning Commission reviewed operation considerations, right? And they discussed requiring a host be on site during the rental. They decided against having that requirement, but they did require having a local agent within 30, I think it's actually 30 miles of the site, according to the ordinance. They'll have to provide proof of liability insurance, and then the length of stay. Again, right, we talked about the three nights, 4 days for non-owner occupied rentals. For owner occupied rentals, right, we allow just a 1-night stay, with the thought process that since the owner is there, right, concerns that we may have due to nuisances can be addressed easily and quickly. Next slide. So other considerations, we wouldn't allow fireworks with short-term rentals. We allow fire pits, but only if they're in compliance with the existing township codes, and pets must be secured on property at all times. Next slide. One thing that we found through the best practices is communities that require good neighbor policies. And what this is just a series of information that is handed and given to each renter, letting them know when the quiet hours are, which have been identified for short-term rentals from 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. Let them know what the property layout is so that they know where the property lines are so they're not wandering onto the neighbor's property. Provide emergency contact info for both the renter and the township. What the trash pickup information is. We want to have them signed by both the host and the renter. And they would also include the other regulations in the ordinances. So we also talked administration, right? We'll have fees associated with it that are going to cover the cost of the township. Those will be addressed in the fee schedule and not specifically in the ordinance, right? The length of approval is good for a year, right? And then they will all annually be reviewed by the Planning Commission. We have processes for dealing with violations. We have processes for removing approvals, and we'll also be conducting safety inspections. of short-term rentals. So other things to note that aren't on these slides that came up afterwards. Planning Commission will be reviewing deed restrictions and bylaws to make sure they're in compliance, that the use is in compliance with the neighborhoods. And also we will be contracting with a compliance company that will be surveying websites, rental websites, to ensure that all ads and rentals are, one, registered with the township, two, in compliance with their approvals and township ordinances. They'll also be providing a 24-hour hotline with both through telephone and online component with that, where they will reach out for us to the property, through the property contact person, to address concerns as they come up, that we can then review and follow up the next day. So there will be 24-hour compliance with this. So the Planning Commission's been working on this for quite a while now, right? We started in January of 2023. I think we have a good ordinance, but as you guys all know, ordinances are written on paper, not stone, right? I think we're at the point now where we have to get something on the books. I think we have a good ordinance based on, best practices of other communities. We've all attended training through either MAP or MTA, so we've seen the pitfalls that other communities have had and what they found works for them. We've identified that in this ordinance, or these two ordinances. And, it's likely we're gonna go through the process and identify some changes that need to be made to make things smoother for everyone. But at this point, I think we address the concerns of the majority of people, not everyone. They say don't let perfect be the enemy, or the enemy of good. I think we have a good ordinance here. So I'm here to answer any questions you guys have. John's here to answer and provide some feedback from Planning Commission. And here we are.
All right, I want to hold off on questions from the board until after we open up, but I want to take a second and just kind of go over, in talking to Mike, I really want to commend the Planning Commission. And this is a process, again, started in January of 2023. So 14 months of work. They meet twice a year. You've been doing that since January of 2023, right? Not everyone was on STRs, but I'm just saying that it's always been, the community's had the opportunity to speak at every one of those meetings. So it's been a 14-month process. We've had a joint meeting with the Planning Commission and the board. We, as a township, I feel very good that we've done the due diligence. I was just at an MTA conference up in Traverse City for 4 days, took 2 classes on STRs, and I was amazed at the process that most municipalities go through, the time it takes to get through this process. But I also learned that even with a 2-year process of Traverse City, think of a city like Traverse City, everybody wants to be in Traverse City in STRs, and they went through about a 2-year process and came up with an ordinance, voted on the ordinance. It took only 30 days to amend that ordinance. So again, all of you that are here, I know are probably concerned or in favor or against it, but the process that we went through, I can assure you, it was as thorough as it could possibly be. We listened to everybody over a 14-month period. So again, if you've had the opportunity to address the Planning Commission or the board, we've heard you. And so anyway, I wanted you guys to know that are here, that are attending, that care, that your Planning Commission and your board took this very seriously. So, Treasurer Tucker, do you have anything you'd like to add from the Planning Commission?
Yeah, just a little. I will just echo what Vince just got done saying. I've been on the Planning Commission for 24 years now. I know, when I was 10 years old, it's hard to believe. I can assure you that there has been nothing in those 24 years that has approached the level of outreach to the residents than we have on this issue. Okay? Forget about the 28 possible meetings. We sent a survey out to everybody, and we got a statistically significant number of responses.
Yes, it was.
And it's not, I'm not saying we got 80%. That's not what it is. Everybody knows what it is. But if you also know that, you know that when you send these out, very seldom do you get, you get 3 and 4% rate of return. We got way better than that. As Mike alluded to, it seemed like every meeting was about short-term rentals, and there became a period of time where the issues became well-known and well-versed and well-discussed. Okay, so I mean, it is astounding to me the level of outreach that we've done here. I think we can all sleep easily knowing that everybody's had a chance for input. We've listened. And we didn't go in with a pre-programmed idea of how it was going to come out either. So that was great. Just in terms of the level of effort that went into this, putting aside the public outreach, the only thing I can think of in 24 years that took more work was when we went through the entire zoning ordinance word by word. And that was not fun, but it didn't involve any public. We didn't have people, kind of saying, well, we think in R3 that the buffer should be, 12 feet instead of 15 feet. We didn't have any of that. There was still all kinds of issues as there were here. There's just a mountain of issues. So what both Mike and Vince have said, this is not written in stone, and I will assure you, it's the best ordinance that I can see with what information we have available to us now. The only thing I will assure you is it is not perfect. It probably will be changed. It may be changed quickly. For those of you that are not in favor of this ordinance, and I know there are some of you here, the only thing I say to you is this. Right now, short-term rentals are unregulated in Fenton Township. Okay? It is the wild, wild west right now. This ordinance attempts to address that. First of all, the reason there's a police power and a zoning ordinance is to pull all of the existing stuff under the rubric of this new ordinance. Because the police power ordinance says it's unlawful for you to operate a short-term rental without special use permit from the planning commission. So that 29 number was based on another study that showed us how many were out there. So our concept is we're going to take all 29 of these property owners and they're going to come in front of the planning commission, and what you get when you have a special use permit is the ability to micromanage at the micro level, because that's what we're at. We're at the micro level of government, and special use permits give you tons of discretion that you don't have if you just have an ordinance just sitting out there as a permitted of use. So we're gonna look at all those. We have nothing to suggest that all 19 of them are gonna get licenses or special use permits. We don't know. We do know there appear to be some problem children, but not all of the 29 that are out there. I would guess we heard about maybe 5 of them that might be problematic. But we're going to find out. We're going to be hearing that. And once this process finishes here, we're in the rental season very soon. So the Planning Commission is going to be very busy. We're going to go from working on the ordinance to hearing these special use applications. And we're going to have, full agenda twice a month. It's going to be fun. And we're probably going to quickly realize, oh, gee, we should have done this or we should have done that. But my point in all this is that right now there is nothing. So I would encourage the board to start. You got to start somewhere. I think this is a great start. It's not a perfect start, I can assure you that. But I think it's better than nothing. And that's what we got right now. I'm done.
Thanks, John. Just one more thing. When I was up in Traverse City, an example was Traverse City. I got out of the second class, and the first thing I did is I called Mike. So I took a lot of notes. And I've always been worried, being a riparian, is we have a situation, riparian issues that other communities might not have, like Traverse City, except the ones that are on the water. So I got out of that meeting, I called him immediately, and I went down my checklist. I said, have you dealt with this? Check, yes, Vince, we've got that. All the way down the list, they didn't miss one. And this is somebody that's been doing it now for almost 3 years. And a community that's a lot larger. And I think they have like 290 Airbnbs now. So again, just to rush, let everybody feel comfortable with what we've done. It's been a long process, but it's, I think, like John said, the Planning Commission did their job, and I think we have a great ordinance. All right, and again, this is just the first reading. and the introduction, so there's no decisions going to be made tonight. So, all right, I will now open up the meeting for public comment. Tom, I'd like to start out with any written comments, and you can abbreviate if there are.
We did receive one written public comment from Robert and Diane Harris. A copy is in your e-packet. Just to summarize, the concerns were the minimum length of stay, the corporate versus resident-owned rental properties, and then kind of a wide variety or several different types of concerns regarding the enforcement of the ordinance and the regulations.
Anything else, Tom?
That was the only one.
All right, thanks, Tom. Is there anyone here in person that would like to address the board regarding short-term rentals? Yes, come on up. Just need you to state your name.
I'm George Stiball. I live at 2462 Cranewood Drive. And I'm sure glad Mike led the way and explained all those terms and the process we went through. And I'm glad, Vince, you made us up to date on what's happening and how things are being amended. And John, all your comments have been very appropriate also. I myself want to go back. It was 2 years ago or more, almost 2.5 years ago, that I wrote my first email to the township. I sent it to Tom Broker first, and he forwarded it to Mike, regarding a concern I had about the potential of STRs coming to Fenton Township and the potential negative effect they might have on this neighborhood-friendly community that we have here. Since then, there have been many, many meetings. You just heard all that. There have been many countless discussions amongst people with differences of opinions, and many back and forth exchanges involving many different issues surrounding this topic, as all of you just seen. As an example, I'll just give you one at first. At first, some people didn't think that STRs were even a business. I think now it's clear, based upon this ordinance, that it is accepted that STRs are a business. And with that, there was no need to put any kind of permitting process in place for the 4 existing business zoning classifications that we have, C1, C2, C3, and OS. Therefore, by definition, those zoning classifications allow STRs. That's in our ordinances. We got it now, finally. So now came the real issue. Do we as a township want to allow this form of a business entity in any of our non-business zoning districts? And if so, how can we control the potential continuous turnover of all different types of individuals that want to use them in such a way that that would not alter or negate the fundamental characteristics associated with the zoning districts that we'd allow them in? As an example, for those people that bought their homes in single-family residential zoning, like myself, they never expected that they might see up to 968 different faces in a 1-year period staying overnight in the property next to them. And that's right, I said 968. How do I get that? Real easy. It's all in our ordinance. Even though that sounds hard to believe, that's for a bedroom house, which we have many, 2 people per bedroom, and 3 nights of minimum stay. 3 nights of a minimum stay, if you divide it 365, is 121 potential turnovers, times 8 people. That's 968 different faces that I could see, or any neighbor could see, staying overnight in the house next to them, in any 1 year. Just the fact that this type of potential condition could occur means it should never be allowed to happen in single-family residential zoning. That number of people definitely sounds like a business zoning characteristic, not a single-family residential characteristic. So I stand here tonight recommending to you, the board, that you do approve. I don't know how this came about, I had this all written down before, that you do approve an amended set of STR ordinances, that they are long overdue. We need one. We don't have anything. These amended ordinances would allow STRs to exist within our township without even a permit, but in business districts only. That we said. However, if you, the board, for some reason, want to allow STRs in non-business districts, then let's do so and start out with agricultural and residential multifamily zoning only, where the single-family characteristics, concerns, and expectations will not be an issue, thereby keeping our single-family residential areas the way they have been for so many years, and why they continue to draw people to this wonderful, friendly neighborhood community. Thanks for letting me speak.
Thank you, Mr. Dyball. Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that's here? Yes? Come up and state your name.
Sunday. I live on Landings Way.
Can you state your name again?
Thomas Sunday. And I live on Landings Way, and I'm the president of the Neighborhood Association. I just got a phone call that somebody's going to do this in our neighborhood, which I didn't know much about, but it is a single-family residences, and it does sound like a business. And I don't like the idea of a turnover, and I know several of the other people don't either, and I'm sure they'll let you know about it. And, thank you.
Well, absolutely. Thank you very much. Anyone else that's here? Yeah, come on up. Evening.
Hi, how are we doing?
Good.
Good.
Just state your name.
My name's Patricia Davis, and I live on 14115 Landings Way. Guys, I've never done this before, so I don't know if I'm out of line in asking questions or at least sharing some of our thoughts. Is that something that I can do during this?
Sharing your thoughts, yes.
Of our concerns.
Concerns?
Okay.
Sure.
So first,
Are they your concerns or?
there are many people on Landings Way, because obviously, as Tom stated, there's a few of us here that are from Landings Way. Number one, we're zoned R1. So does that matter in the slides that I had seen? We're R1, so some of our lots are smaller, I think. Some of our lots are smaller than our, whatever the other sizes are. We're R1, does that matter? Will that make any
Under
kind
the
of a
current-
difference?
Well,
Mike, you want to address that?
It's definitely not R1.
R1 is
It may have been R1 in the past. When
Okay.
the ordinance was redone, it's, I don't know if it's at least R3.
Yeah, R1A is now R3, that may be the confusion.
I know a lot of them are smaller, so the lots are a lot smaller, so that, I didn't know if that would matter at all with these. Okay. The outreach program that you had said that you were successful with, did you do just electronic? Is that what you did?
No,
Or was it mostly Facebook?
We mailed the township.
Okay. I know a lot of us didn't receive that, but that's neither here nor there. We, on Landings Way, have a Landings Way Association. So because we have our own association, if the majority of the people that live on Landings Way do not want this short-term rental, would that trump the township's decision and Landings Way does not have to allow it?
Mike, I'll let you address it, but I think that the ordinance currently states that if an HOA prohibits it, then.
Well, it's
correct?
a Landings Way Association, is it?
Is it a true HOA?
Okay. So it's an association that we've had in place for.
We have bylaws.
We do. So I don't know technically what you consider an HOH, but we've had this Landings.
Do you pay dues into this?
Yes.
We do.
You do. John, you or Mike want to jump on that? Because that's a little out of my pay grade.
Well, yeah, it's hard to know without knowing the specifics. The question is, irrespective of, whether you have an association that's formed, are there building and use restrictions applicable to the entire development?
Yes.
Okay. Well, if that's true, then that is one of the factors that the planning commission looks at when an application comes in. Okay? And Jack's gonna say the township doesn't enforce zoning.
You're right.
Yeah,
You're right.
and he's 100% right. We don't enforce them, but we are going to consider whether they're consistent with what everybody that has bought in this subdivision has agreed to. Okay, and that's a point that George was making earlier when he was talking about it. So it's something we're gonna look at. It's not our job to enforce it, but we're gonna consider that factor when we're looking at one of these applications.
So how would we know if an application came in, so that way we could view our opinion and make sure that you look at it a little bit
We have a
more in detail?
lovely website,
Okay,
okay? And I will assure you
okay,
that you might as well just figure that May, June, and July, you can come to both the planning commission meetings that are second and fourth Thursdays at
Okay.
6 o'clock right here,
okay,
because they will be coming.
okay.
Another thing you can do,
More importantly though, it's a special use permit, and we send out notices to everyone in 300 feet. So we'll send out mailings to all the property owners in 300 feet. So there will be mailings in addition to emails sent out for those that have signed up for notifications. Information will be put in the paper, minimum of 15 days prior to the meeting. And then we have the website, we'll post all our agendas.
And with
So-
further regard to that, 300 feet isn't as large or long as you think it is, okay? So maybe 3 or 4 of the neighbors around are gonna be getting notices. So if the typical subdivision is much bigger than 300 feet. So again, you gotta go back to communicating with your association membership. If somebody gets one, they need to tell everybody if they want, what they want them to know about it. But
And
there are these other methods beyond
That
the
we can
300
take.
feet. You're
and
gonna
you
get,
can, sorry, I keep jumping on you.
that's okay.
I thought you were done.
Yeah, yeah.
I was just gonna say, you could be proactive also. I mean, if
Okay.
you do have an HOA, then you can communicate to your HOA and state that, just wanted to remind everyone, we don't allow HOAs, or I mean, short-term rentals in our HOA, so.
Okay, technically, it's not considered an HOH, but it could just be the verbiage, because it is a Landings Way Association. We pay dues, and we do have bylaws.
Correct. And the only land restrictions we have is through Genesee County.
So I think what John would probably say is that if you came to the planning commission when someone in your neighborhood or your subdivision was applying, that they're gonna look at that, correct, John? They're gonna say, well, you don't have it in your bylaws to restrict said short-term rentals, so that may be something you wanna look into also.
Okay, like an emergency meeting and taking a poll up and down the street of how many want it and how many don't, and then put that in there?
Yeah, well, it won't hurt. We'll listen to anything you
Okay.
got to say. But
All right.
it is not a popularity contest,
No, it's-
okay?
yeah.
Right.
All right? That's-
Two last things. You had mentioned non-motorized boats. So with that being said, some of these people that rent the short-term rentals, many of them have friends that have boats, so are they allowed to have their friends bring the boats? The biggest thing that we're worried about is having multiple people we have 30 houses on one street, or on one side, 30 on the other. It's a small cul-de-sac, and we're worried about, some of the stuff that happened out in Lake Fenton, where you get parents that are renting homes for their kids to party, or you get different people coming in and pulling their money together, and we're just worried about crazy.
We understand.
So,
We've went through the process.
yeah.
They'll be looking at all of that at the planning commission.
Okay. And I am 100% for that business, the conversation that you had. I think that was a very good argument. So, thanks, guys. Appreciate you listening.
Thank you very much, Patricia. Is there anyone else here that would like to address the board on short-term rentals? Yes. Yes, come on up. I do want to limit the time to about 3, even though there's not that many people, just.
Good evening, I'm Charlie Handley, a
Charlie.
longtime Lake resident, been here over 40 years. I just had a couple questions. I don't know whether the board would answer this or Mike. And as Mr. Tucker said earlier, I'm glad that there's something being put into place. As concerned as I am, we gotta have something in place for this. First question I had was, did I understand that there's gonna be an annual renewal process for the special permitting?
Correct.
Okay. And will there be the opportunity for the public to comment on the renewal process?
Same 300 feet mailing, same website.
Okay, so annually that'll be renewed, okay. And I also understood that there is a limit, or that there will be a limit on the number of short-term rentals on the lake?
Well, it's just in the township.
Or, oh, in the
29
township, and
the
so it's
entire
29
township.
currently?
Yes.
What if 50 people apply for special use permits?
They all get a hearing, and when we run out of 29, at that point, we stop.
Okay. And at this point, there's no intent to go above 29 for the township?
We don't know. The question you're asking is one that we asked ourselves. You know, we're presuming that all 29 of the existing ones are going to apply. My guess is they won't. Either they're not aware or they won't, whatever. But a significant majority of the 29 will be from people that are already operating them. Okay. Now, if we get to the situation that you have, when we find out that our information about there being 29 is in error, then we're going to have to figure out what to do. But our starting point is with what we know now, and what we now know and believe now is that there are 29. So all 29 of them will have an opportunity to get a special use permit. And if we have less, you know, it could be more new ones come in. If we have more, we're going to have to figure out how to handle it.
So when this ordinance goes into place and when it's voted on, it's going to have a specific limit, possibly 29 then?
29 is the number.
Is it? Okay.
That's what- That's what it's in the ordinance now. We can always change them, we can raise them up, we can lower them down. You know, we can do what George suggested and say, okay, these only apply to commercial or, you know, multifamily or, you know, whatever. You know, that, we have those tools in the toolbox.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Anyone else that is here in person? Yes, ma'am. Come on up, just state your name.
I am Amy Lincoln, 13389 Lakeshore Drive. Just one clarification, it sounds like when the special use permits come available, which I'm anxiously waiting to complete mine, and you're going to take public comment to have that approved?
There's a process at the planning commission anytime that there's any kind of special use permit, not just short-term rental, that everybody within 300 feet gets notice. Okay? And we listen to anybody that shows up, whether they're within 300 feet or
I've
not.
applied for a special use permit for like an open house, and I didn't have a meeting. So that's different. And then I've also had a zoning issue where it was, you know, notified so I'm just a little confused on the verbiage
If you
that we're
applied
using.
for a special use permit, there was notice given as part of that process to everybody within 300 feet. If
Okay.
it's a special use
I
permit.
just didn't have to.
I'm not sure what you're describing. I'm not sure that what you're describing is a
It was
special
like
use
for
permit.
an open house or noise or something like that.
sound permit.
Yeah.
That-
So maybe it
That's
wasn't
a
special
whole
use. Okay.
different thing, yeah.
Whole different thing, all right. So with that being said, if I've got 4 neighbors within 300 feet and they all come and complain, chances are you may deny that.
It's not a popularity contest.
I realize that.
It's gonna depend on what the facts and circumstances are, what they've got to say, you know, if there's a history, you know, if they've got issues, you know, we'll listen to all that. And then we'll go from there, because that's part of the beauty of the special use permit. We can attach conditions to it, and we can tailor those conditions to the specific circumstances of each site. That's kind of why we walk down this road, because they're different, you know. Even to George's argument, you know, if you put it on the middle of a 40-acre farm, the issues are different
I get it.
than if somebody's 40 feet away. So, you know, we, the planning commission, are gonna be able to look at each one, instead of in the abstract, which is what this ordinance is. We're looking at everything in the abstract. We're gonna look at it at the very minute details of the specific request.
Okay. And the only other thing was just the specifics, which I'm thinking you might not even have that yet. I've read somewhere, there's certain, like the fire chief needs to inspect, that kind of thing. We're just not there with those details yet, is that correct?
We're not all done
Okay.
with all parts of the ordinance or the pricing or anything like that.
That's all I had.
Thank you very much. Anybody else here that is in attendance that would like to address the board? Hearing none, we will move on to, is there anyone attending via Zoom that would like to address the board on short-term rentals? If you do, either raise your hand or turn on your mic.
Message from Don, he says he's already voiced his concerns with respect at the planning commission level, and he's good tonight.
Okay.
I see Jim there. Are you gonna talk, Jimmy?
Jim raised his hand.
Jim, are you gonna talk?
Sure.
Yes, go ahead, Jim.
Well, as you know, I'm president of the Property Owners Association. This is a topic that's been pretty hot at our association, and we've had surveys and whatnot, and basically, most people are against them. Not all, but most of them. And our issue has been primarily, as George already said, this is a business and single-family residential. We've been going to these meetings, attending meetings for over a year, and one of the restrictions that was talked about was not allowing them in non-conforming lots, which I think Mike had a map at one of the meetings that 70% of the lots on Lake Fenton were non-conforming. And that's gonna mean they're under 100-foot wide lots. We have many 40-foot wide lots on the lake. It's just an invitation for problems. And I've done some research, and some municipalities have a zoning for them. And I think that would be the ideal thing. As George alluded to, we have zoning, zonings that would accommodate short-term rentals, but maybe we need to create a special zoning for them and rezone them. I just, when I was impressed kinda of what George said, the turnovers you could have. And this is a tight-knit community. I just can't imagine. And I've never heard anybody say they'd liked one next to them. So I think we need to do something, but I don't believe the restrictions we have are enough. I'm not sure which way to go, but there's lots more things we could do to restrict them, and I think we need to look at those options. You know, this is kind of a new concept, and just recently, New York City, I don't know if they banned them, but they restricted some of them. I think John Tucker knows more about that than I do, but you know, it's not like everybody has to allow these wherever they want, you know, people want to put them. So I think we need to take a good look and get some more restrictions, because like I say, I don't know anybody that wants one next to them. Nobody's ever told me, oh, I'd like to have a short-term rental next to me. Thank you.
You got one.
I want one next to me, okay? I would love it if I had some nice people that just wanted to enjoy the lake, okay? Instead of nasty neighbors who think they're better than everybody else. You know what I mean?
So what's your address again?
Yeah, exactly.
You are on record, and this will be on YouTube tomorrow morning, just so you know. So if you got some strangers in your lawn, you'll know. All right, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Is there anyone else on Zoom that is attending the meeting tonight that would like to address the board?
Julia.
Hearing none. She's not on Zoom. I'll get back. All right. Julia, did you want to address the board?
Yes. More particularly Jen. I have a couple questions regarding, so we have platted properties, and we have site condominiums, and we have meets and bounds, which we all know go through a different planning process. And I think that might have been some of the confusion with the lady back here, because they are platted. I'm not sure that there are bylaws that they have. I think they're restrictions. Typically.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter? Okay, that was my question, is if some of these neighborhoods create, but they have to do it the correct way, not just get a group of people together and say, hey, we're this.
Right.
Is the board gonna be looking at the articles of incorporation of an association to make sure that they are current and that they are basically a legal entity following those rules?
I don't think that's gonna be the point of focus. The point of focus is gonna be when you bought this property and you got your title work that you didn't read, did you buy this property with the notion that it could only be used for single-family residential, or it has a flat-out prohibition on short-term rentals, or, you know, It's what is it that you bought into that you either knew or should have known?
Gotcha.
Okay, now, that's the first level. That's not to say that an actual, let's take a condominium, they always come with associations, you can't create them without them, statutes out there, there's always the entity, half the time they're dissolved because nobody's filing the annual reports, I don't care about any of that, okay? But if there's a master deed that says you're subject to X and Y and Z, you know, that's something we're gonna take a look at. Not gonna be busy chasing it down about how official the HOA is, as long as it's, because an association there's no requirement that an association have any articles of anything. It can just be people getting together to do that, and if that's what we're hearing, that's fine, but we know that we're only hearing from those specific people. If we know that there were building and use restrictions recorded in a certain subdivision, everybody in that subdivision knew or should have known about them.
Correct.
Okay? So, you know, to me, that's gonna be the point of focus, is what was the expectation when people bought this property?
Gotcha. That's it?
Is that it?
That was too easy. You usually got more than that. Mike said, don't.
I will close with this. Having a home in Florida, popular destination place, it's exploding with short-term rentals, and communities are getting together. Whole islands that have thousands, or maybe not 1,000, but 400 or 500 homes are now setting up restrictions for these properties. So I think you're going to see that also. So just, I know that's I don't know the legalities part of it, but it's happening in Florida, all over Florida, because, I mean, everybody that's got a house on the ocean rents it out because they can get $5,000, $10,000 a week, so.
It'll be interesting to see, because as you know, development has picked up considerably. As these new subs come in, I will be very interested to see what the developers do with this issue. You know, are they gonna prohibit it because they think it'll increase sales to folks that don't want it? Because there are a lot of people that say we just don't want it. I get it. Are they gonna say, well, yeah, but I can get more money from 5 of these, you know? So I will be interested. It'll be interested to see how the marketplace evidence itself as these things come in for approval, because they have an opportunity to start with a clean slate there. These folks, they've got what's already been written in front of them, and you know, maybe what they could do as a group going forward. But
right.
Yeah, the clean slate folks will be of interest to me.
Well, not even just to give another example of Florida, you know, you go to a place like downtown St. Pete and there's 9 high-rises being constructed. 5 years ago or 4 years ago, when STR started becoming popular, the developers of those high-rises didn't want STRs. Now, all of them allow it, because a condo that was $1 million is worth $1.5 million if they're allowed STRs. And so the developers are going, wait a second, you know, I can either sell it for $1 million or I can sell it for $1.5 million, and all of them now. So again, it's going to change. You know, I can't see, you know, downtown St. Pete with 3,000 short-term rentals, but it's probably going to happen.
One of the things.
Hello?
One of the things that we heard a lot, at least early in the process, is you're going to hurt our property taxes. It's a fair argument, I think. You know, it's a fair concern. The planning commission has heard this story. Yeah, just a minute. We'll be with you in a minute.
Okay.
I spend 2 weeks on Torch Lake every summer in a short-term rental. Okay, been doing it for, I don't know, 15 years. And it's managed by a realtor that, you know, sells houses. And Torch Lake is very large. It's not like Michigan, but it's very large. I'm not sure how many municipalities there are around the lake, but the short version of the story is that if you go in to the different municipalities, what a house is worth very significantly with whether or not STRs are permitted. And that surprised me. I mean, it's usually more. It's worth more if they allow short-term rentals. And if the same house moved 3 miles down the lake, same frontage and everything else, worth less.
Different municipality that didn't allow them.
Yeah, and that one surprised me. I can now rationalize it, it makes sense to me, I get it, but, we're all as a group gonna see how that plays out here. And we're trying to take the baby steps approach. I know Jim Root thinks that we're stepping too big, and that's a fair, comment and concern, but, we're trying to go start small and see where that takes us. That's the approach.
All right.
Hello? Yes.
Yes.
Can I speak?
Yes, you
My
can.
name is Charmaine Thorley, and I live on Windsor Beach, except I'm in Florida right now, that otherwise I'd be at the meeting. I've been listening to and watching the talk. I want to comment on this last gentleman's comment and ask you some questions. Well, two things. One, you said because we have these 29 homes that we are 25 or whatever it is we've identified, we must now make them legal. It sounds to me like that's where you're going. Rather than saying, we've allowed this to happen, but we need to put some brakes on it. Now, the next thing, they were bragging and talking about how these short-term rentals, housing, become very valuable. What about the house? And we're going to so far you said 1,500 feet apart. What about the houses that are located next or near the short-term rental? What is their value going to be? Because they can only be sold as a single-family home, and yet people are not going to willingly buy most people will not buy next to a short-term rental. I wouldn't. I don't feel that it's neighborly. I don't feel like you can get to know the people there. They're coming and going all the time. If you have a problem and you need help putting up a shelf, you're not going to go next door to ask the people that are partying there to come help you. It does everything, this ordinance is doing everything it can to destroy single-family community feelings, as far as I'm concerned. And I'm not sure why you think it's so valuable. It's valuable to the people that have those and are making money. The rest of us are left to live with the conditions of it. And even if all the people coming through a particular rental house seem to be very nice people, you're going to get some more noise. You're going to get some more disturbance. You're going to get cars coming that you don't know. And it leads to neighborhoods being easier, people come into the neighborhood who maybe don't even live there because nobody can identify or say, gee, that car, I'm wondering about that car. I've never seen that one before. Just so many people coming and going. This is not a good thing for families with small children or elderly people like me. We just feel insecure, unsafe. And I guess with that, I'll leave it. But as I said, you made the single-family home concept just mute. You've just disregarded it altogether. I don't know if you think they can exist side by side. Maybe you know more than I do. But with that, I'll say good evening.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Oh, I doubt it. I am going to fight tooth and nail, and I do not. And I'll tell you, if I ever had one near me and they cause a disturbance, I'm going to be on the township hall, and I'm going to be on the police and the owners of that place. Also, the township needs to be bonded because this could turn into a nightmare down the line. If somebody give up on their rental home and just abandon it, or if somebody brings in people that cause a big problem and they damage to a neighbor's property, who's going to pay for that? I think the township should. So other than that, as I said, I'd say good night and be quiet.
No.
So good evening, folks.
You're just fine. Thank you very much. All right. I'm now going to close public comment. If no one else here wants to address the board, I think we've heard everybody. And again, it's been an exhaustive process. Are there any questions or comments from the board at this point?
I have some concerns of some things that we didn't consider in the ordinance. One, you mentioned that the cap is gonna be 29. The way this ordinance is drafted, it says that the township by resolution can establish a maximum. So that isn't really established yet, is that correct? That number?
Is the number not in the
Because the
ordinance? Do we
number's
take it
not
out?
in the.
It would be a resolution.
Yeah, it's not in the ordinance, okay.
That's
I
gonna
be a
be-
wanted to
resolution.
make sure
That's gonna be the suggested number, yeah.
I think some of the other things we didn't consider is, and I looked at many other ordinances as well. I spent some time, did some research, and I found one in particular that I thought had some good wording. And they considered children. If you have a young couple who wants to rent a place, and they have one small child, say under the age of 5, they would be forced to rent a 2-bedroom place. They couldn't rent a 1-bedroom. I mean, to me, that's not very accommodating. I mean, I think we need to be practical about our application and maybe think through some of these things and include them in here. I mean, maybe you did think it through and you made a
Yes.
staunch
We held like 2 meetings just on that topic and how to, what's a bedroom, right? So the ordinance says heartbeats for that specific reason. And because we had that discussion.
Now, I have an issue with that as well.
Well, so the planning commission discussed it a lot and they brought up that specific question and
Well,
they.
the heartbeat, you're also talking about a pregnancy.
Well,
We could debate that, but I think you are.
So, sure. I think that was based on other ways of defining, occupancy.
Right.
But the matter of having children, yes, that was specifically talked and discussed in multiple meetings.
Okay. I'm not in agreement with that. But there's other things. Maybe you could, how did you come up with the 1,500 feet of distance between homes? How was that determined?
So it was based off other distance requirements in the zoning ordinance where we have, 1,500 specific setback from, I don't want to say nuisance uses, but intensity, different types of uses from certain uses. So it was, that distance was already in the ordinance.
On that note, if there are 2 existing houses that are doing it now, then, I'm thinking he didn't have it just because of that.
Mhm.
I'm thinking those streets because it's just a straight shot. If there's already 2 within the 1,500, who gets it?
So, because this is a general ordinance, there's no grandfathered, no legal non-conforming uses. So it's based on the review of the planning commission.
So they both would have to come up to the
First come,
plan.
first served?
Nope.
Nope.
Who, give me something.
Well, I mean, it's gonna, what you're looking at is extremely abstract. We're talking about heartbeats.
Yeah, and that's.
You know,
that's
and
why I
that kind of thing,
didn't
okay?
until you-
When we get to this level, it's gonna be really concrete. So, it's gonna depend. Has there been a series of problems, with this short-term rental? And we hear about them, from the folks that are in the know, that are most affected by these. And everybody understands that's the people that are gonna be next door to these.
What if it's across the lake?
Yeah, well, I mean,
is that 1,500 feet from?
1,500 feet as the crow flies, you take a
Okay.
compass and strike it out. Can you ask for, can you get a variance from that? That sort of thing. But, are they both on non-conforming lots, or is one centered on a 5-acre lot, that's non-riparian? There's 1,000 things that are gonna go into this calculus. And
I know, and how about like, I rent one on Lake Fenton and I bring my own boat and I launch it at the DNR website, can I park it at?
That is not currently allowed today.
Well, it's non-motorized.
But so under
No,
the
under our
zoning
current
ordinance?
ordinance.
Under the zoning ordinance.
Yeah, zoning ordinance.
What would that be an issue if they're actually renting the place? Because it's technically theirs for 3 years. I don't know.
Yeah, no,
I'm just throwing these out.
No, I don't think that would be a violation, because anybody can put in at the launch, and you run in, one of the arguments we had is, well, Skipper Buds will rent the boat to anybody, and they may well, Yeah. Yeah, I think you'd be insane to do it, but that's a different issue by itself.
Now, again, I wasn't in these decision-making, but I'm
Yeah.
just seeing some things here that.
Oh, it's not gonna resonate with everybody. There are gonna be issues that we're gonna just agree to disagree on, but nothing is permanent here. You know, it could be, we get to the point and we think, what Christine's point is like, yeah, well, we should have gone in a different direction, but we did spend a lot of time thinking and talking about it. And again, it was the 1,500 feet, we don't want a subdivision or whatever just taken over by them, because if you look over on the west side of the state, there are in fact subdivisions that are nothing but short-term rentals. And, you know, I don't know that we are quite Torch Lake or even some of the places on West Michigan, but we're somewhere in between that and, you know, a subdivision just sitting in the middle of flat piece of ground.
Well, you have to think about that. If we're one of the areas that allows it and other areas around us become more restrictive, then that would make our area more attractive.
Yeah.
I guess another thing, and I think a lot of people's fear is that corporations will come in and buy up properties for the sole purpose of renting them. They have no stake in the community, they have no skin in the game other than dollars. So have we put anything in here about, you know, does it have to be a homesteaded owner? Does it have to, you know?
We talked
can
about
it
all
be
that, but the
Can
mechanism.
it be for the main purpose of the home is short-term rentals and no one ever lives there? There is no residence.
Well, that's, you know, we've talked about all of that. And, you know, the way this is gonna work is it's gonna be complaint driven, okay? So I don't care what the structure of the ownership is. I don't care if it's you know, it's a person or an entity, because I'll guarantee you right now, there are rental homes in your subdivisions that are owned by trusts and companies and whatever. There's no prohibition or restriction on that. If you bring in residents that don't comply with the ordinance, you're gonna be on a very short lease. We've talked about the baseball rule being 3 strikes and you're out. You're not gonna get one. You're not gonna get renewed. And we, you know, progressive discipline, if you will, in the sense of, you know, ordinance violations. That's how we're gonna look at it. You know, are you behaving with the restrictions that we have? And if you are, because I think what you're gonna find is that in the full body of short-term rental owners, probably 85% of them are just terrific owners. It's that other 15% or 5% or whatever the number is that are gonna be the problem children, and we're gonna hear about them, and we're gonna be prepared to deal with them. You know,
And just, sorry.
Question.
I was just gonna say, some of the things, I spent a lot of time researching and talking to people that manage Airbnb, and I know people, and I do, I mean, I was against this from the beginning. As a riparian and living on a lake, I was against it. I've learned a lot, and everybody's fear is we're gonna have these crazy partiers, and they're gonna be making noise and breaking up our lawn and everything else. It doesn't happen. Airbnb doesn't want that to happen. They have huge, monstrous law firms that, number one, if we were to ban them, we would be in a lawsuit tomorrow. Simple as that. We're gonna get sued, and we're gonna cost hundreds of thousands of dollars probably defending ourselves. So the point is that a lot of fears I understand, but we can commit. You talk about corporations. If I'm a corporation and I do have properties, I'm not gonna come in if there's 29 in the township. What's my benefit of coming in? And I'm not gonna buy all 29. I may own one, but if I don't own one now, the people that have them right now are gonna be the 29, or if that number is 22, they're the ones gonna get it. Corporations aren't gonna be able to come in like Traverse City and build a whole complex and be able to rent them out. So I've said enough. We've done a great job. Are we gonna have to take a look at it with changes? Yes, but I think the planning commission has knocked it out of the park. To start.
Yeah. So another question is, you mentioned a 24-hour compliance vendor, which I think, we talked about this a little bit before, and I think it's a great idea. You know, that person would allay people's fears. It would be someone that they can reach out to, and then they'll get the contact person over there, or coordinate with the sheriff, or whatever needs to be done. at all hours of the day and night, because Township is not gonna staff that for sure. But have we looked at the cost benefit of that, and is there just been an analysis that basically the fees that these people pay will cover that?
Yeah,
that
so,
cost?
so we.
Because we don't want the taxpayers, the
Correct.
other residents to have to pay for
And
that.
so the fee schedule will include that cost. Now, the company that we are recommending that we're going with is very reasonable in cost compared to, basically due to the size of what we're looking at. Now, if for some reason everyone loses their mind and we uncap and, you know, all of a sudden we have 3,000, well, you know, we'd probably pick a different vendor, right? But, you know, this, keeping it around 30, it's like $150 a unit. So it's,
So it's reasonable.
it's less than a night's rental.
And that's what we're gonna be putting into the fee structure. So, yeah, they will pay for that. It's a great software that lets, you know, notification, it's all taken care of.
Yeah, I mean, I disagree with some of the things that are in here, but I wholeheartedly agree that as a township, we need to put some sort of regulation in place. I agree that banning it would open ourselves up for more problems than we have today and far more costly. You know, I guess another option is to just let it run how it's running now, but I don't think that's a good option.
No,
just
it's
just
not
a
good
reminder.
option.
I know, so I think we have to put some guardrails around the process, and I think you're right, John, we're not gonna get it right from the outset. This is gonna take time, we're gonna have to make changes over time. You know, and we do need to protect the neighbors. I think I said before when we started this, I've been a VRBO, Airbnb renter in numerous places, both very populous Florida beach places and other very much out of the way places. I rented one in the Upper Peninsula one time in the middle of nowhere.
Great.
I think the majority of the time you're gonna get renters like me, who's there with my family, who is on a long weekend or a week away. We're not throwing parties, and even if we were, you know, crazy throwing parties or riding ATVs around in a subdivision, I mean, you'd call the sheriff and they're gonna come out and support it and take care of the residents. I think you certainly can run afoul, and you're gonna have the odd renter that might cause some problems. But I think the majority of the people who seek these types of getaways and vacations are just there to relax and have a nice week.
And they're here to stay. So we have to deal with it some way, somehow. And I think that the police power that we're going to put into it, I think one thing I could say to Fenton Township residents is that it will be something that we take seriously. And the way that we monitor it, and I think, like John said, it might not even be 1, 2, and 3 you're out. It might be 1, 2, and you're out. I mean, bottom line is that I don't think this township's going to tolerate somebody that's abusing, and they got to come up in front of the planning commission and renew it every year. And I think that's going to be something that's taken seriously. So, all right, is it a question we can answer? I mean, because we're not at that point yet, ma'am. We haven't made a final decision. Go ahead.
Directly across from me that's going to be doing the short-term rental. She has already got it rented out starting May 27th, so in 3-4 weeks. So, special permit, you guys don't even have that in place.
If we pass it at our next meeting in 2 weeks,
Okay.
the current ordinance as it is written, when will it take effect?
I don't know. Jack, when's it
I was gonna say
gonna
30
Well-
days, I had to.
You have two different ordinances. So the zoning ordinance takes effect like 7 days. The police power ordinance, you've gotta wait 30 days.
So assume.
But we
30
could
days.
restrict her if if we do it in the next 2 weeks, May 27th, it'd probably be close, but.
Okay, so just keep following up on it.
Yeah, look, realistically, there's gonna be growing pains, right? I mean, there's gonna be people operating without permits. That's why we have the compliance, company that we work with, because they will identify people that are advertising without permits.
And then what do you do with them?
Well, then, if they don't have a special use permit or if there's none available, then they're out of luck.
We just notify them that they can't do it.
Yeah, then, if they're operating without a permit and no permits are available, then that's it, right? They're not allowed to do it.
So how do you boot them out? I mean, how do you tell them they can't do that? How does that work?
Take them to court. We take them to court.
Just listen to our attorney. Like Jack said, we just take them to court. We got an ordinance in place. Please.
And do you want to be the property owner that requires an annual special use permit to do what you want to do, where we're having to take you to court because you're not following the rules? Do you want to be that person?
No,
You know,
you're
that's.
starting right now.
Yeah.
So what do you?
It's just going to be an onboarding process. This isn't going to be snap your fingers and now poof, everybody's got a, you know, it's going to take a while to process all the applications. There will be rentals this summer that will probably be going down before the special use permit process is through. That's just part of getting this thing going. You know, I don't think we're going to send anybody to federal prison, you know, because it takes us 3 or 4 months to get this thing rolling. But if, you know, it's what you got to do to make it happen. Because this time next year, everybody's going to have a special use permit. Everybody's going to know the rules, and the ones that started this year, we're going to be hearing how they did.
Another thing too, just so you know, is in my research with Airbnb, Vrbo, is that everybody thinks that everybody wants to get into this business. Well, when they look into it, when they find out that they're going to lose their homeowner's insurance because it's a special rider and it's expensive, there's a lot of things. You just don't all of a sudden say, guess what, I'm going to take the bedroom and start renting it. My insurance company for my lake house will not insure me. My current. Now, there are some that would do it, but I don't think I want to go from X to X if I'm planning on renting it out for a couple of weeks. So these are going to have to be people that are serious about it, and they know that through the process that they could lose it. I think you're going to find that we're going to, you know, be dealing with better people. But all right, I am now going to close the public hearing. I already closed the public hearing. Any other comments or questions from the board? Okay, the second reading and vote on the adoption of the proposed ordinances will be conducted at our May 21st meeting here at the Township. All right? All right, next order of business is unfinished business. This is just a reminder that we have a 3-week gap before our next meeting. Our next meeting is on May 21st, so that is 3 weeks, not 2. Moving on to new business. This is the Metro Act permit application, Merit Network. Operations Manager Broker, will you review?
Yes, included in the packet is a request from Merit Network, Inc. They've been hired to construct a fiber optic telecommunications line from Mott Community College's Thompson Road campus, east along Thompson to Fenton, and then north into Mundy Township. So it's part of a larger project, but the Metro Act requires that they get a right-of-way permit from the local units before they can begin that project. They've complied with all the requirements with their application, and I would recommend that the board approve it.
All right, thanks, Tom. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, I need a motion to approve the Metro Act right-of-way permit for Merit Network, Inc. as presented.
Support.
All right, motion's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Tom, will you call the roll?
Reed.
Yes.
Gopel.
Yes.
Tucker.
Yes.
Kessler.
Yes.
Lorraine.
Yes.
Krug and Patrick are absent. Motion carries.
All right, thanks, Tom. All right, next under new business, proposed amendments to the 2024 Fenton Township budget. Again, Tom, will you review?
Yes, we've just got a couple of minor, only a few amendments. One of them is rather major. The one I'll highlight is the $1 million decrease in state highway grant revenue and the $750,000 decrease in Thompson Road project expense. These amendments are due to guidance recently received from our auditors on how to account for the MEDC grant funds. Up until we received that guidance, we were treating it sort of like we did the ARPA money, where the money was put into an unearned revenue account, and then as we spent it, the expense was recognized, and we recognized that much revenue to offset it. After researching a little further, our auditor said this is a little bit different. We need to recognize all $5 million that we received in the first half of the grant as 2023 revenue, and not have it in the unearned category. But then the difference between that 5 million and anything we've spent to date will be restricted fund balance. So it still will not be included in our unrestricted fund balance calculation. So, the other items in there were increase in property tax admin fee revenue, just actually upping it based on the most recent year, and then increased audit expense due to the fact we spent most of our ARPA money last year, which triggers an additional audit process, and there were several new GASB standards that went into effect, which took a little extra time. So the net effect of the proposed amendments is a decrease to the total fund balance of $211,000, or an increase to the unrestricted fund balance of $316,800. I realize it seems counterintuitive, but it's just because of that restricted fund balance and the way we're accounting for that grant money. I'd be happy to answer any other questions.
Yeah, I have a question.
Thanks, Tom.
For those of us that aren't accountants,
What did you
what
just
does
say?
that mean?
It's just a matter of the way we reported that money.
So the money, we haven't lost any more money, it's just,
No.
it's in numbers, we're putting it in.
It's an accounting game.
It's accounting game.
It's the way it's
Yeah.
reported.
Okay,
The
not an accountant.
The unrestricted fund balance, which is the very last line, is the key. And, you know, as long as that number is, well, the board could choose to spend some of the fund balance, but, you know, that's the key. So we're not, none of these things are,
We can still use it for what we intended.
yes,
It's
it's just the way we report it is different now.
perfect, thank you.
Yes.
Do we anticipate that the audit expense will go back to its pre-existing number next year?
I made them promise that they would
Okay.
lower it next year.
I'm very proud of you, Tom.
And Tom did warn me. All right, any other questions for Tom? Okay, I need a motion to adopt amendments to the 2024 Fenton Township budget as presented.
So moved.
Support.
All right, motion's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Tom, will you call the roll?
Kotrick is absent. Kessler.
Yes.
Krug is absent. Gopal.
Yes.
Tucker.
Yes.
Lorraine.
Yes.
Reed.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thanks, Tom. All right, next business order is board comment. Is there any, anyone on the board who has additional comments or concerns they'd like to discuss?
Yes, sir.
Yes, trustee Gopal.
For Jack or John, back to the short-term rental. I shut my mouth for matters of expediency. Does this open to, my concern is that we've got people, I know they're not grandfathered in, but we also have people that have possibly bought houses for this. And the 1,500 feet concerns me in the fact that, does that open us up to any liability at all if people have bought a house for the purpose of this, and now we're restricting them from doing it?
It's more liability than if you allow the Wild Wild West to continue.
But the Wild Wild West,
The Wild Wild
in
West
theory,
shouldn't
is more
continue.
liability, because.
Well, it's a different form of liability. You heard somebody tell you that we should be paying for the damage.
Well,
And get yourself bonded while you're out here.
yeah. Check. Is that,
Well, I mean, I have some concerns myself about how you do this, because as somebody pointed out here, the houses that have this short-term rental, license, permit, special use, are gonna be worth a lot more. And so if you just, and this 1,500 feet, I don't know exactly how I defend that in court, it's kind of an arbitrary thing.
thank you. For that house that has that allowed
Right.
for the year.
Yeah.
That's value went up, but the neighbors might actually go down.
It's the same argument against the cap. I mean,
Yeah.
we're trying to keep
I'm just
we're
looking
trying
out
to
for
keep a
everybody else
handle
in
on it.
township.
And but yeah, no, it subjects you to potential litigation. It does. Your alternative is to turn your back on the subject and just let it go, and whatever happens, happens. I don't think your residents are gonna be crazy about that idea either.
No, but that's also something, here's my concern. That's also something that's been going around for many, many years. And a lot of people didn't even know about this until we brought it up. So I understand we wanna kinda grab some sort of control, but
We're trying not to rock the boat real hard here, okay? What we're trying to do, I mean, if you can see what we're doing, we're kind of saying, okay, this is what we think we have is out there. The world hasn't ended yet with all these. We have complaints about some of them, but the world hasn't ended in that sense. So, you know, we're gonna start at that level and kind of see how it goes.
This is a very dynamic.
Yeah, because if you're right, if this is the level of demand that we have and it stays flat, then all of this work has probably been unnecessary.
And
There's a pretty strong feeling, though, that this type of, and it's a business, George is right, it's a business activity, it's on the uprise. There are people that are looking at them, there are people that are buying them as investment properties, but they do that right now already, just for
Yes.
longer rental periods,
Yes.
okay? What's different is this whole idea of a week or a weekend, and it comes with the parade of the terrible horribles. And I will tell you, that's most of what we've spent our time trying to make sure doesn't happen, and there is no guarantee that we will be able to accomplish that. Well, yeah, go ahead.
I get that.
Yeah.
But the flip side of that is everybody that's expressing a concern about this is basically rudimentary trying to tell other people what they can and cannot do with their property. It's every single one of them. Nobody that's for this is, but everybody's against that. It's not them that's doing it, obviously. It's, I don't want my neighbor to do this.
Right.
You know where I stand on
Yes,
letting
I'm
people do.
familiar with your property rights stance.
Okay, well, that's just my,
Well, that's an American way.
well, that's my concern about this, is that I see everybody against it, and then because they're bringing up these concerns, I don't want my neighbor to be able to do this, where it hasn't been an issue yet. I understand people complain about it, but people also complain about the neighbors that live there year round. So I'm not too concerned about that, per se. Everybody here knows exactly my stance on that, so I just wanted that put out there, that I see this, and I want you to know that I see it.
So I think the good knowledge is, it's putting the toothpaste back in the toothpaste
Tube,
tube. I think the planning commission did take a conservative approach to things. And it's a lot easier to reduce the restrictions than find out you screwed up and need stronger restrictions than what you started with. We started with this saying, these are written in paper, right? Maybe that's one of the things that needs to be looked at. But to start out with, I think it kind of ease people into the idea.
I like you said that. I like that you said that, I know you said it's written on paper, but, it's something we can always pull back the reins versus putting the screws tighter. So, again, I just want people to know that I see a fundamental flaw here, which is consistent with my philosophy on this board, so I just wanted it out there.
Well, at this point, I agree with you 100%. But I bet you we could sit in a room of 100 people, and like Christine, she has 2 issues, you have a couple of issues, everybody's gonna have a couple issues, and there's no way we would solve this issue. But we did let the process work out for 14 months, and I look at it too, we have a strong real estate attorney that was sitting in the planning commission.
Absolutely.
So I think we were guided through great leadership. Mike has done so much work on it. So I'm not gonna keep saying it, all I'm saying is that I think that we have to trust the process that we went through and make adjustments going forward.
And when it comes to people's rights, I want those adjustments to be made accordingly.
I agree 100%.
Okay, that's all.
All right. Any other comments or concerns from the board? Hearing none, we'll move on to the next business order, which is public comment on agenda or non-agenda items. I will now open the meeting for public comment on agenda or non-agenda items. Is there anyone present that would like to address the board on agenda or non-agenda items? Not STRs. All right, hearing none, we'll go to Zoom. Is there anybody attending via Zoom tonight that would like to address the board on agenda or non-agenda items?
Tom says he's good.
Everybody good?
Everybody's good.
What's Torrey Road gonna be?
When is Torrey Road section there gonna be done?
We, I had a meeting this morning at 10:30 with our engineer. We have them every other week, and we were, I was told, and also I had another conversation with the road commission. I hate putting this out there, but they're saying, and again, it could rain 52 days in a row, and we're, they're telling me, including we are going to repave everything from Jennings up Torrey. So it's gonna be all brand new road. It's not gonna be patched like you see now. All of that is going to be done by Memorial Day. So they're telling me, but I don't really wanna put that out there because it's gonna be in the paper tomorrow and then everybody's gonna call me up and wanna, throw me through a window, when it doesn't happen. But what I'm saying is that is their goal, is to have Torrey Road complete before we start throwing boats and pontoons down there to go to that access, so.
He really meant 4th of July. Let's put that out there.
No,
what he
don't,
really
no.
I think 4th of July is, it's been down for.
Well, that was kind of a goal, because you have to find a balance between safety of the school and the children, ingress and egress to the school in the mornings and in the afternoons. Then you think of, my big fear was, they're gonna have one lane, 4th of July, a guy somebody driving a 24-foot pontoon, as you know, they go like this behind you. So they did a great job, or at least they're trying to, so. It is. That's the date.
Did you all get a look at the tower? The water tower is now off the ground probably 20 feet.
Yeah,
now.
the water tower is supposed to be
2
done.
years ago, it was only about 3 feet.
It was a base, yeah. I was by there and I just came by today and it'll be interesting to watch it. Have you got your picture picked out on the side of it?
Yep.
Right here.
I already got it.
Yeah, no, this one. We want this one. We want the natty. We can put the other one.
I already gave them the M logo. We're all set. National champions underneath.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. I am now going to close public comment on agenda and non-agenda items. I do request, as John had set forth in the agenda, that we are going to now go into a closed session. So I'd like to recess the open meeting to convene a closed session to discuss pending litigation. I do need a motion.
I'll move the motion. Second.
All right, motion's been moved and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Tom, will you call the roll?
Gopal. Yes. Tucker.
Yes.
Lorraine.
Yes.
Patrick and Kruger absent. Reed.
Yes.
Kessler.
Yes.
Carried. We're in closed session.
We're in closed session. We'll take 2 minutes and we will reconvene.